You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Adler and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
And we're back. Hi, Patreon members. Welcome to this show. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not a show. It's a party, the Patreon party that we kind of threw together last minute. So background. Originally, Jonesy told me, he's like, oh, I can't record this week. I've got some big gala I'm going to. And I'm like, that's fine. Go do you, right? Mr. Celebrity, now that you've been doing this show for 4 years or whatever it is. And so I said, well, I will get together with the people because I am a man of the people and try to get the Patreon folks to come on and do a kind of like a Patreon party show where we just talk about Star Wars. And lo and behold, Dante Utini from Discord. Say hi if you don't mind real quick.
Hello.
Hello. Look at that. He even did the little kind of like a Jedi symbol. If you can't see that because you're listening to the audio. But he was gracious enough to volunteer to help out with the show tonight. But somehow we still ended up with Jonesy, who's with us tonight, somewhere, I think, in Tel Aviv or something. Where are you broadcasting tonight from?
I'm on location from an undisclosed location. I can't tell you. I'd have to silence you permanently.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate you making time. Where's Steph? Steph was supposed to be here, too. She's not going to make it, though.
She's lurking behind the desk here.
Okay.
Come say hello to everyone.
She's on her way around.
She's going to say hello in her language, I guess.
In her own language?
Hi.
Hi.
Yay.
Well, there you go. Again, this is audio only, so you probably just missed her. But that was Steph as well. So another member of our Discord, another member of Patreon, and one of the main people that keeps the show going, honestly, behind the scenes. So thank you for chiming in there, milady. Milady. But I thought we would. So this is supposed to be a conversation. It is a show. Because I ran the credits, and I guess so. We can do show and tell now. So I'll start first. No, I'm kidding. Now I do want to look. I want to show you this one thing. So I'm holding up. Look at this. Can you see this? So
Yeah.
this is an original box set of Star Wars miniatures from the 1987 role playing game that I constantly talk about. But it's still shrink wrapped, and it still has the original price tag on there of $10. I paid $50 for this because it was brand new. But if you look on the back, it has like these. It's like little future figures, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's
You used to
wild.
play with. But I had this back when I had a box of these, and I still have, I think, probably half of the original, like maybe 5 or 6 of these, and I lost them just over the years, over the course of 30 years. I've lost some of these, but when I saw that it was shrink wrapped, I went ahead and got it just because it was one of the very first things that I remember ever buying once we came out of, quote, the dark ages. And even then, we really weren't out of it, but this was all that was out there for Star Wars. And so anything that came out with a role-playing game, I was out buying. And so now I'm just, again, so most people go through midlife crisis and they get Corvettes and stuff like that. For me, it's going back and buying all the childhood stuff that I either didn't get or sold because I was too stupid when I was 22 years old not to keep it.
Well, along those lines, earlier on Twitter, and I forgot the Twitter username, but they had posted the original soundtrack cassette for Return of the Jedi.
Whoa.
That they had dug out.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it came on cassette, to be honest with you.
Oh, they all did. Well, I don't know about the 77 probably did not.
Yeah, those probably didn't. I wonder if they even made it to 8-track. Probably not then either.
Oh, no, there is. I have the 8-track Star Wars. I'm not even kidding you.
Oh,
I will
my
pull
God.
it out for the next Patreon show for show and tell. I mean, it's got, it's white, if I'm not mistaken. There was a black one too, but the one I've got is the white version. And it's got that R2 C3PO, that infamous publicity shot of them kind of standing in the desert, on one side.
Right.
And then I think on the flip side, it's got like, I want to say it's blue or white. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But yeah, that's what's on the cover.
Yeah.
So there you go. But yeah.
Nice.
So Dante, have you collected anything recently?
I mean, probably just Lego. Lots and lots of Lego.
Star Wars Lego?
For the most part. I mean, I got kids, so we get somewhat of a variety. They get a few things for them, but mostly Star Wars stuff. Although
You're talking like the Star Destroyer, the AT-AT, Death Star.
I have the
any
new
of these?
AT-AT, the big one. I got
You do?
that one. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Is that assembled?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that the motorized? Is that the motorized one?
Oh, no, not the motorized one. That one's like 10 years ago, I think. Maybe not that long. I mean,
Oh,
probably
wow.
not that long.
Yeah, the motorized one's from God, motorized one's from like almost 20 years ago, I think now.
Mm.
But a few months back, I bought like a big pack of old Star Wars Lego from someone on some local reselling site. So I'm kind of going through that and washing them because they're really dusty and kind of gross, and then putting them all back together.
See, I can tell you're a real fan because you say Lego. In my ghetto butt, I say Legos. Like,
Yeah.
hey, let's play Legos. You know.
I do both. I'm not pretentious about it.
Okay.
I say both.
All
Just
right.
depends on how I'm feeling at the moment, I guess.
So that reminded me when I was growing up, I had my orchestra teacher. His last name was Engel,
Mhm.
but
Nice.
everyone always called him Engels. He's like, there's only one of me.
Yeah.
So it's just Engel. So every time I see Porter Engel's name,
Yeah, exactly. So the first thing that came to mind was Porter
Yeah.
Engel. So
yeah, I keep thinking that's something a Jedi would say. There's only
Mhm.
one of me. You want some stew?
Good one. Good one. Okay. Well, so what I thought we would talk about is Kenobi. And I know this is a little it's still early. I think we did the math and I was wrong and Dante was right. But I think we're like 3 months out from the premiere of the show, May 25th. And but interestingly enough, here in the last week in the rumor mill, and I know we don't do rumors, but I think we tend to float around with those guys a little bit when we do Patreon. But last week there were some not credible, but there definitely were some rumors that I guess leaks, if you want to call it a leak more than a rumor. And some of the people that picked up on the leak said, "Look, I can't verify that this leak is legit because this person I've never worked with them in the past." But what they've shown me is enough to convince me that there could be smoke here. And what I mean by that is there was a piece of the trailer that was shown, and in addition to that, this source said that the trailer was going to be coming out March 9th. There was a previous rumor, again from an unconfirmed source, that was saying March 10th. Everybody was thinking March 10th. This person comes in and says March 9th, so they're pretty close. The one key thing about March 9th is that is the next Disney investor meeting. That's happening.
Yeah.
So they're everything's kind of lining up for this to kind of be a credible thing. So what do you think? I don't know. We'll start with you, Jonesy, as far as March 9th. That'd be put us like 3 months out before.
That's 11 weeks out from the premiere if it was on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Oof, that's you start getting in that gray area because usually it's about 6 to 8 weeks that you start getting at least the major trailers. But with the TV shows, I'm trying to remember when the teasers start to come out. And I may have to do a quick search on that one just to see when we've gotten Boba Fett and Mandalorian. But it still seems a little bit far out to have anything except a teaser. I wouldn't
Mhm.
expect a full-blown trailer until probably April would be my guess. But
Yeah.
kind of our first look or something like that, I think, yeah. And Investor Day sounds like a pretty good time to do it. But the thing with Investor Day is they don't normally show video during an Investor Day call. It's a call. It's not usually a video call. It's usually a call.
Yeah, there was one a couple years ago. You're right. Most times, 99% of the time, it feels like it is just a phone call. But I do recall one that I was dialed into, and I was on the website listening to it, and they were like, "Okay, we're now going to break away," and they threw up some like promo. While since I wasn't there, right, I didn't get to hear it. I was watching advertisements that were coming in from Disney on the page, and when they were done, it kicked back over to the call. So they have done it in the past, and I want to say that they did that when they were announcing Mandalorian, I think, or something.
You
But
know what? That may have been with remember when they did the sizzle reel for the investors only
mhm.
for Kenobi? And then we roasted them late last year when they gave us the
Yeah,
same BS.
yeah, the
Yeah.
same line. Yeah, maybe that might be true.
Maybe that's what it was, yeah.
Dante, would you want something like a trailer now, or were you more of a? Or I guess, do you think it's going to be a trailer? Do you think it's going to be a teaser? Do you even care at this point? How much are you salivating for anything Kenobi at this point?
Well, I'm not a big fan of Star Wars anyway, so I mean,
Oh,
whatever they.
okay. Well, thanks for being here, man. We'll see you
Yeah,
guys.
anytime. Well, again, I think you guys mentioned it before, but also they're supposed to show something. Like people in the show thought they were going to show a trailer at
Yeah.
Disney Plus Day. So, I mean, hearing you say maybe Investor Day kind of has me worried that they're just going to say, okay, people who give us money, lots of money. You can watch it. Everyone else, you can hopefully see it tomorrow. So maybe both rumors are true.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would assume it's going to be. I mean, it's not that far away,
Right.
so probably something short, because the first thing's always something short. Then maybe a couple weeks from now, maybe something longer.
Yeah. I would imagine we're going to get a bunch of TV spots like we did with Boba. Bad Batch, they did the same thing. Mando, they did the same thing for both seasons. So I think that's part of it. So I guess if it is a teaser, that probably would make more sense, at least from a timing perspective. You know, maybe we get a few more up until, you said, Jonesy, in that 6 to 8 week period. And then we get a full blown, you know, knock your boots off kind of trailer.
Yeah. Once we hit May, it's just kind of balls to the wall, if you will, of
tons of
mad
TV
promotions.
spots.
Yeah.
Yep. The Disney machine kicks in.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Doing what they do best. Okay, well, that'd be pretty exciting. Again, just a rumor. There's nothing here confirming anything whatsoever. Just, again, I know a lot of people that follow rumors and spoilers are like saying, hey, this could be legit. So just keep it on the radar kind of thing. So I got a general question, too, that I want to start before we get into some of the more specific questions. But, and Dante, I'll start with you on this one. There are a whole host of things that people have been talking about, speculating we possibly could see things that may pop up either via Easter eggs, special cameo appearances, references to things that have happened, you know, continuity explanations. There's because it's Kenobi, because it's Anakin, because it falls in between this time period that we've wondered about for so long. There's a lot of stuff out there that's kind of floating around. But I think the question really is, what are you looking forward to? Like, what is something that you'd want to see the most? Is it just the battle between them? Do you want special cameos? If so, who would that be? You know, what is it that's, you know, aside from it being just Anakin and Kenobi again, which is enough, what else are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I saw this question. It's kind of interesting because if you'd have asked me like right after we got the announcement, I probably have a whole list of stuff that I want to see or stuff that I'm worried about.
Mm-hmm.
But like now, I'm just kind of excited for the show. Like whatever they give me, it's great. Like if I had to pick something, obviously like Vader versus Kenobi is going to be awesome.
Right.
And then seeing Kenobi talk to Pelimoto is going to be the best.
Oh,
I'm really excited for that one.
you son of a gun!
I wonder if he'll investigate that Jawas really are furry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We need that. We need to see that
We do
on screen.
Please be on screen.
Yeah.
Suka. What about you, Jonesy? Is there anything that you're like chomping at the bit to see?
I would love to see Qui-Gon Jinn come through and have them reconnect in that kind of, you know, spiritual force way, and then also, I guess, learn what the training was, how Yoda passed on how to pass into a force spirit. I think would be really cool to understand better too. Those things seem reasonable to at least have something about, right? I've seen some reports that Liam Neeson has, you know, is not involved at all, but let's be honest, that doesn't always mean anything because characters show up, and they've been able to keep secrets fairly well in recent times. So, you know, maybe something like that might come out later if it was true. But I think those are the things I would, if I was to pinpoint one thing. The Anakin Vader stuff is interesting. I just want to I don't know how they fit that in quite yet, and where they have their contests, and see if does it pull from Legends, like when they had met in Legends, or, you know, we're going to kind of retool some of that or what. But
yeah,
without a doubt, I think it's communing with Yoda and Qui-Gon, and then to a lesser extent, you know, what's the relationship look like with Owen, and seeing a young Luke, like how does he actually stay involved or stay in the presence of the kid to take care of him, or is he really just really off in the background? But clearly there's some sort of conflict with Owen, and maybe he's like Geo and he's really flirtatious with
there you go,
Baru.
Yeah,
and
ladies man.
Yeah, it could be. He's probably not as stoic as Geo though, but
no.
But so I'd like to also kind of see that conflict there of what really sparks it, because apparently, I mean, so we know that the actors who played Owen Baru are in this, and so presumably we're going to have something like that. So I'm kind of interested to see what that takes. That's probably not a whole lot, but there's only like 5 episodes, so that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, hopefully these episodes will be, you know, 45 minutes to an hour, kind of like we got with Boba, so. Right? Just so that we can get the most time out of a shorter series. But there are a lot of cameos that have been popping up. There's one about Leia. We'll come back to that one here in a little bit. That's kind of hit the rumor mill last week, and I'll kind of give some explanation as to why that one got traction. And then there's, of course, all the other people, some of the characters now that we've seen in Mandalorian, Clone Wars. There's tons of folks in there that have been rumored to be in it. The Qui-Gon Jinn one makes sense. I know, and this wouldn't be the first time an actor just straight up lied to our face and said, I'm not in this. And they show up, and they have to. I mean, that's just the way
Andrew
it goes.
Garfield.
So, Andrew Garfield, yeah, he was blue in the face saying he had no involvement, and then surprise. But again, it's a NDA, and part of the whole, when they sign on, they are told they can't say anything, right? So we get it.
I guess you're alluding to, I guess Jimmy Smits is confirmed to be in it.
He is, I think
as
so.
Bail Organa.
Yeah.
So that makes sense why Leia might show up.
Yeah, that was part of it.
Would you feel cheated if like Obi-Wan and Yoda weren't in it?
If Obi-Wan wasn't
Sorry,
in
if Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan.
Oh, so yeah, I'd be pretty cheated if Obi-Wan wasn't.
It's a different Kenobi.
Yeah, his brother.
Did you feel cheated when Boba was in
Oh, ooh, ouch. Too soon, man. Shots fired.
Low cut.
Low cut. I think I would feel... No, I don't think so. I mean, because it's just... It depends on what the story is. If it's really just kind of focused on their relationship, then maybe not. I don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, I do feel like we are going to get Anakin in it, but I just mean, I don't know that we're going to get a Anakin and Obi-Wan story and it's solely about them. I do have a feeling they're going to have to figure out a way to do more, because we know they can't be on Tatooine. They can have a confrontation. We got to get them there quickly. So there's not a lot of time, in my opinion, to kind of explore all the mysticism, to the nth degree around Force Ghosts and the Jedi Master kind of or Master Jedi and apprentice relationship. A lot of that stuff may just get touched on and mentioned. So if they didn't show up, no, I wouldn't be disappointed, but I would be if it, didn't check some of the other boxes that I think are kind of expected.
I might be disappointed if Yoda is not in it, because I think Yoda is still pretty central to that. He's still connected to those characters and to the overall mission, I think.
Yeah.
And so that Obi-Wan would talk to Yoda about Vader or something like that seems relevant to take that kind of risk to be able to connect in some way.
Yeah, and they have established that Yoda can do something like that. So
yeah,
like in Rebels.
Yeah, I think if Qui-Gon's not there, that would be unfortunate, but I would live with it. But if Yoda doesn't make any kind of appearance, I think that would be unfortunate. That would be pretty disappointing.
Yeah,
so I just think he's so central to this story.
And then for both of those, I mean, you've got the actors, still alive and full of vigor, right? So why not take advantage of the fact that they're here?
Yoda's still kicking.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yoda's going to live forever digitally, so it's going to be fine.
Yep.
You don't even need their voice anymore, like we did with Mark Hamill. So.
Oh, yep. So I'm trying to think like some of the other kids. So let's talk about the Leia cameo. So there's a little girl, I forget her name. It's not important. It's part of the conversation, but probably not important right now. Again, just a rumor, not even a spoiler as in confirmed by any means, but there was a little girl, there's names floating around there. And some people have posted pictures of her, and some people have taken those pictures and photoshopped them. So, she's got the white Leia kind of dress thing going on. And all that seems to make sense, especially when you figure in that Jimmy Smits is very likely in this. I think he's been confirmed about already. But I guess what begs the question is, how does she play into all of this? Or does she play into all of this? And the more I was thinking about it, the more it feels to me like if they're going to have a Leia and they're going to have Jimmy Smits or Bail Organa, and we've got to get we'll get to the whole Kenobi on Tatooine. Is he landlocked? Why does he leave? And all that. We'll come to that here in a little bit. But let's just assume for the sake of this discussion that he does have to leave Tatooine for some reason. I think on the main show, Jonesy and I have been talking about, well, there's probably something that he feels is endangering Luke by him being on Tatooine, and so therefore he has to leave. I think maybe a farther stretch that could tie in Leia, though, is what if Leia is captured or something's happened to her, and Bail is like, I don't have nobody else to go to. This is going to require a Jedi of some sorts. Presumably they would have some kind of connection, and he calls upon Kenobi and says, look, I need you to go save her, right? He knows that she is one of the two kids from Anakin, and maybe has some kind of notion that she is force sensitive or whatever for whatever reason. But the point of this is, would this tie then back into her pleading for Obi-Wan to come help her? She says, years ago you fought my father in the Clone Wars, and you're my only hope, kind of thing. Like that line of "you're my only hope." Could it be that he had saved her at some point, and now she's calling back to that time of like, this requires somebody of your kind of caliber, somebody that I've experienced something with. You saved me literally at one point. Would you see that as kind of a stretch? Would that be a reason why Kenobi would get off Tatooine? Dante.
Oh, okay. Well, just thinking about the line, "You served my father in the Clone Wars." If Obi-Wan had saved her before, wouldn't that be what she referenced? It doesn't have to be, but it seems like it would make sense. Timeline-wise, if she was captured and he had to save her, in Leia, Princess of Alderaan, that's when she joins the rebellion. So this, I think, happens before that. Which, I mean, they can contradict all they want. But if we're going to...
She'd be about 10 years old here at this point.
We're going to assume that she doesn't have anything to do with the rebellion, then... I mean, it can go either way. But that would just kind of lead me to think, okay, why would he go? Why would she be captured if she had anything to do with it? And then the last thing is, Jimmy Smits is already with Ashley Eckstein at this point. So, because they were Fulcrum already. So why would Bail Organa not call Ahsoka?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer with that specifically.
Well, that's easy. Dave Filoni's not involved with this project.
Yeah. So no Ahsoka. Sorry, he's part of the package. Hey, before you answer that, Jonesy. So one thing I do want to mention too. So some of the questions I'm posing, trust me, when I go back and I watch, like, one of the things I have is, are any concerns about this interfering with continuity? And what I mean by that is, some of the quotes that I've got here, like, we've all understood them to be a specific thing for 40 years, right? And could it mean other things? That was kind of where we're going with this. So I'm not saying that this is going to be like a rewrite or, anything like that. Or the fact that it was referenced isn't lost on me. Like, I've always believed that when she said, "You served my father in the Clone Wars." Oh, okay. Well, that was a Clone Wars. But now it looks like they're taking some liberties with some. They could be taking liberties with some of the quotes and kind of expanding on them a little bit more. Is all I was saying. So, but Jonesy, your thoughts on whether or not we see Leia and why, if so?
Yeah, and I share the concerns about continuity in general with both you guys, and I think where you could work it though is if you have Leia. While he might save Leia or be instrumental in doing something, because I don't think your theory, Albert's really that far off. I think that's entirely plausible, and it could be that Obi-Wan helps in the background, and she doesn't even know that it's him doing something, right? And so I think that's a very real possibility. That could be something that they're able to work in without spitting in the face of continuity. Because I think the people are going to roast you really hard if it starts to really skew from that. And the lines that she has in A New Hope seem very clear, right? That they are definitely talking about their history during a certain period of time. And if she had something more direct, it seemed like that would be something that would be relevant for that situation. And I know the timing of when movies and TV and all this stuff is made is a thing, but you can't go and insert some of these things into the past and actually make them work all the time. And we've seen some instances where people are okay with it, and we've had some where they just muddy the waters. And George was always probably the worst offender at some of that. So, so I'd rather, if he is involved, I'd rather be totally behind the scenes and not have any kind of real view of Leia, or he can see Leia, but Leia maybe not interacting with him as much. It makes a lot more sense for Bail and Obi-Wan to have interactions with one another, and for Leia to be a kind of a passing character who might not know who he is, and he's just introduced as a friend, or something like that.
Yeah.
So maybe something more along those angles, but I don't have a problem with Leia. I always have an issue when kids are cast as some of these iconic folks. I mean, Daniel Logan was like that too, right? trying to be Boba Fett as a kid. It just same with Anakin, as a kid. It's a really difficult thing to step into when you're 10, 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
And so I
I-
kind of don't envy anybody that gets that opportunity.
Yeah. And I don't want to be a jerk, but I've been of the opinion that kid actors are just hit or miss. It has nothing to do with them personally, right? I mean, I
Right.
guess it does, but it's hard to find a kid actor that's going to be out there and just hit it out of the park. They're still very young. They don't have the experience. And so sometimes that does kind of, I don't know, it kind of, I wouldn't say hurts the movie, but it certainly can pull you out of the scene. Like I'm thinking of like Anakin, and no offense to, I was called him Haley Joel Osment, Jake Lloyd, right? But there are moments in there where I'm like, that line delivery is kind of like the yippee kind of thing, and that sort of thing. So, all right. Anyways, I'm not going to harp on kids. But yeah, I'm with you there. So, and Leia is such a iconic character that you're going to expect certain things. So expectations may be higher than normal if it was just, I don't know, Kickster a little bit older or something, right? Okay, so on that topic though, real quickly here about the cameos and about Obi-Wan leaving. Are we all in agreement that he's going to leave? I think all signs point that it says he is going to leave Tatooine. Do you disagree or?
I think all signs are pointing that way.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
as conflicted as I am about it.
I know. Well, and some of the art and stuff that we've seen now kind of show us in different areas, and so
yeah, and even if I hadn't seen anything, I probably still think he'd leave.
He'd have to leave. Okay, but the $1 million question is why, right? And we've talked about this probably ad nauseum at this point, but you know what? Here's one more time. We've talked about why would he need to leave Tatooine. Now, originally, again, we said that there was, we know that the sisters and the brothers are in this. The Inquisitor is very likely to be around and in this as well. They're on the hunt for Jedi. How they found Obi-Wan, I got a theory as to how they found him. I don't think they find him though. I think for me personally, I think it's more about them getting too close, and he's got to kind of lead them away in some way, distract them, pull them away from there because they're encroaching upon his safe spot there, or the safety of Luke Skywalker. But Dante, do you have any other, I guess, theories, ideas as to why he would even leave, knowing, from Rebels, we know that he is firmly still believing that is the chosen one. And his mission that was given to him by Yoda says that you need to sit there and protect him. The entire galaxy rests on his shoulders as far as Kenobi's concerned. But yet he leaves. And I don't think Uncle Kenobi or Uncle Obi-Wan is going to take Luke on some journey, right? I don't think he's taking him off planet in any way. But what do you think would compel him to leave like that?
I think there's a few different things. One, I guess if the Inquisitors were getting close to Luke, which, it could happen. I think probably not. So the main two things I think are the likely scenarios is if, like near the beginning, like Obi-Wan has to use the Force to save somebody. And that kind of brings attention. And then he's got to take the Inquisitors who are coming to find somebody who was using the Force and lure them off planet and then take care of it somewhere else. Or if Bail Organa says, hey, we need some help saving somebody, maybe a young Jedi is being, chased or something like that, and then Obi-Wan's called to help with that, which I think are the two most likely scenarios for my own personal logic. But there are an infinite number of good reasons that they can make to make it happen. So I'm not stuck to any specific reason for him going after or being chased. But I trust. Those are kind of the two main ones that I can think of.
So one of the other theories here that's come up is now. So I'm going to get back into rumors, and I'm going to get back into unofficial leaks. So again, nothing confirmed, but there are some pretty credible sources out there talking about a new character being introduced, and I think the character's name is Nari. I don't know how it's pronounced or spelled. Nari, maybe. This new character is somehow potentially comes down to Tatooine looking for Kenobi. And when he realized, and this character's Jedi of some sort, like one of the people that got away. And when he realizes that he's brought him there, he's being pursued by the Inquisitors. And so this is what drives him to be like, holy bananas, I got to get out of here. you shouldn't be here. We got to go. And he leaves. And that's what starts kind of the adventure. Now, the couple of things that come to mind is like, how would he even find Kenobi? Well, first and foremost, right? Because really, if you think about it, the only people that should know are maybe Bail Organa. Well, yeah, he would know. Bail Organa. You've got Yoda and Kenobi, and that's it. I mean, to me, it's always been like that's kind of that circle. And I don't think they would ever break that trust. I don't think they would ever go beyond that. Even like somebody like Ahsoka or, I mean, this is a need to know basis. This is the galaxy at large here that's at risk of Luke Skywalker, quote, the chosen one being found. I don't think they would ever go and talk to anyone else about this. Maybe Qui-Gon as a Force ghost, right? But in the physical, I can't see it. So, any theories around why or how this guy would have potentially found Kenobi if that was the case?
I mean, if we're going to assume they're the only ones who know, which makes sense to me, maybe Yoda told him to go seek out Kenobi. That makes no sense to me at all. But maybe that's how he knows. But other than that, like I can't think of any good reason why he would know.
Yeah. Jonesy, what about you? You got any quack theories as to how this guy, this alleged Jedi, would travel out to Tatooine in search of Kenobi, and that was what kind of, and he's got the Inquisitors behind him, and suddenly they've got to get off planet because this dude just shows up at his front door.
Wait, what alleged? Sorry, I couldn't hear anything else. What alleged Jedi?
So this is we were talking about a confirmed rumor here, or an unconfirmed rumor about a character named Nari who shows up on the planet, and this is what he's got the Inquisitors in chasing him. He shows up looking for Kenobi's help. Kenobi says, "Holy bananas, what are you doing here? You can't be here. We got to get out of here." And that's what leads them off planet. I was just I was asking if you had any theories as to why this guy would even know, because the only three people, and I think what Dante was confirming too, that we all truly believe would know where Luke Skywalker is are Bail Organa, Yoda, and Kenobi. And that's probably it. I mean, that's the circle of trust, and I don't think they would ever break that.
Yeah, I mean, and they're the only ones who know where Obi-Wan is too, right? So there's no. Yeah, I don't know why someone would come find Obi-Wan, because I don't know. I guess there's probably rumors that go on, but a different Jedi. I mean, I'm actually having a Phantom Menace, callback here of why do I feel like we've picked up another pathetic life form type of event here. I like more the idea where you guys were going before, and I apologize, I couldn't understand it, but where Bail Organa asks him to help with something, and that's what pulls Obi-Wan off planet. Yeah, and that's what could also spur his, and maybe it's because of the Inquisitors. Maybe Organa thinks that the Inquisitors are getting a little too close to Leia, and it's becoming a real concern to where he needs something to throw them off the scent, and he's not able to do it himself. And so I kind of I like more of that angle of things rather than someone showing up on Obi-Wan's doorstep. Because I'm sorry, if a wayward Jedi can go and figure out Obi-Wan Kenobi is on Tatooine, because no one knows Luke Skywalker exists, right?
Right.
But if another Jedi can find Obi-Wan, then why wouldn't Vader be able to find Obi-Wan? And I know we can explain some of that away with Palpatine saying that, telling Vader that basically his hunt for the Jedi is over. And we saw that in the Vader comics. I believe it was the Vader comics, where he said that your attention is needed elsewhere. You've hunted down, you've had a great hunt, but it's time to move on to bigger, better things. My design needs attention, not your insatiable lust for punishing the Jedi, basically. So I'd much rather him leave because he is called away and he's needed, rather than some random kid showing up and he feels like he's got to get him away so that he doesn't find out about Luke. Yeah,
I was sitting there thinking about this too. Like, if this random Jedi, rando named Nari, if they would have said this was like, and I hate to evoke his name because my goodness, we bring him up on everything and it always falls through. But let's say you had somebody like, I don't know, a Quinlan Vos. And Quinlan Vos is not aware that, he's not aware of any of this is going on. He knows Obi-Wan maybe finds out that Obi-Wan's alive. If there's anyone that could find him, he wouldn't need to go to Yoda. He wouldn't need to go to Bail Organa. He could just use his psychometry to go find. Maybe he goes to Ben's old hut or whatever, or finds some artifact or his cloak, robe, I don't know, whatever it is, and is able to kind of start putting the pieces together. And that trail leads him to Kenobi because he's out maybe searching for the rest of the Jedi that have lived, right? That would be a way to get him, that he could be somebody that's still being chased by the Inquisitors and just, again, looking for help, and trying to rebuild the order or whatever. He ends up going to Tatooine, but it's not, right? This is a character that we're not, or maybe this character has the same psychometry. Maybe they've just repurposed that special force power to this guy. He's got it as well, and that's how he gets there.
I really like the idea of Quinlan Voss being the one to show up on his door. That one I'd be perfectly fine with, because it makes sense, because Voss spent a lot of time on Tatooine. And then also with psychometry, he can touch just the objects around him and get a sense that he's alive, or a sense that he's there, even if it's accidental.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, he's just kind of hiding out, jumping from place to place, goes back to Tatooine because he wasn't really familiar why he was, what he was doing anyway.
Yeah.
And then comes across an object where he gets a vision of Obi-Wan. And that's when he starts to try to find him, because he's, potentially nearby. I like that theory a lot.
Yeah. And Nari could be a pseudonym. So he's just going by Nari and not Quinlan.
True. Or it could just be some random crew member that they decided to name just to keep the name secret. Kind of like what they did with Plo Koon, right? They put Plo Koon in their concept art just to throw people off. There wasn't Luke Skywalker. Mandalorian, same difference.
Yeah, no, but I know what you're saying.
Well, for Luke Skywalker though.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so there's one way that someone could find him, and that's beyond the grasp of somebody like Palpatine or Vader. There is another way that I've been thinking about too. So this goes back to one of the episodes of Clone Wars, and I forget which one it is, but it's the one where you guys remember where Dooku like sacrifice, like he gives him like blood or something. It goes like into this altar kind of thing, and they use the connection between Dooku and Yoda, because that master and apprentice connection is really strong. And they use that to go into they have some like Yoda has some kind of force vision, and then eventually they all start fighting together. And they were they were shooting like the lightning, force lightning. Yeah,
Sidious and Dooku were,
right. And they were able to connect with Yoda, like they were able to find Yoda. I guess maybe not. I can't remember if they found him physically, because I think that was all kind of in his head that was happening. But they were literally looking at him and talking to him and manipulating him in some way. But if they've done it that way, couldn't they just do it the same thing? Couldn't they take Anakin's his only good hand and cut some more blood out of there, do the whole ritual, right? It's a throwback to Clone Wars, and this is a way for them to connect with Obi-Wan or scare the living crap out of him. That maybe he feels like, okay, they're on to me, I gotta get out of Dodge, kind of thing.
My one question with that is, couldn't they use that to find Yoda? So why not just do it with Yoda?
No, because Dagobah is so, and I'm being serious. I think I've always thought Dagobah was like a perfect place because it's so full of life, right? There's so much life there. The Force is so strong there, and all that he's kind of shielded. He's in some ways.
And you have the shadow of the dark side kind of masking some things.
Yeah, we're on Tatooine. It's like, okay,
Yeah, I get that. But also, just if they're using that special magic to find him, then would Dagobah block the special magic?
Well, I guess the other
the
other follow-up question of that one, maybe, Dante, is the connection between Anakin and Yoda strong enough as it was with Dooku and Yoda to be able to find Yoda, to where maybe it only makes sense that it's Obi-Wan, because it's that direct master and apprentice type of connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe. I think the best question is, would they ever do that in live action? Because that does not seem like something they would ever do in live action.
Right, because you would need Sidious.
That's true. You would need Sidious.
Yeah.
And Dooku. Well, no, Dooku's dead, but Sidious, yeah.
Yeah, Sidious, and then you need, that's a perfect opportunity for him to take his helmet off. I don't know, maybe not.
But we've also never seen Vader use Force lightning, because presumably that would fry his circuits. Because Dooku had to do the same thing. Dooku had to add his lightning,
his mojo
to the pool as well.
There's just some things I feel like they'll do in comics, but they never do in TV, or stuff they do animated but never do live action.
Yeah.
that specific thing that they were doing to do the thing with Yoda then just seems like something very animated that wouldn't necessarily translate to live action. I mean, it could. They got money for it and time, so they can make it work. I believe they can make probably almost anything work. It just, for right now, thinking about it, I'm not sure if it would translate very well.
Yeah, I think the bigger hurdle, like you said, they've got to explain a few things. Like you said, the Force lightning thing. Can he do that? They've got to potentially, now we're talking about bringing Ian McDiarmid back, or some. I don't know. Maybe they used what do you call it? Not Ghostface, deepfake. Yeah,
Deepfake.
maybe they use deepfake technology to get somebody to play him so they can have him there. But I don't know. It was the only other instance I could think of where they were able to connect with another Jedi that, outside the realm of normal possibilities. And if I remember correctly, they were talking about it was one of the, it was something. It was dark magic. It was Sith magic, or whatever the heck the term they use. So it's not something that's readily available to Jedi to use and all of that. And that's why I guess he had to give some of his blood up, which is funny because I remember he was like, "Oh, we just need a drop of your blood," and then he has this grin on his face and then just slices his whole hand because he's a sicko. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to, I guess, the fight real quick. And then before we get into the last thing, which I'm calling quotes as cues, but the fight itself. I mean, this is was it Kathleen Kennedy said this was going to be the fight of the century, right? I think that she said that back in Disney Plus Day or whatever it was. No, it was the Investors one, whatever it was, the big when we had the very first announcement. It's going to be the fight of the century. So we already know they're going to fight, and we'll get into more of the fight here in a little bit and what that possibly could look like or mean. But I think the question is it just one fight? Is there more than one? If they go the route of this whole dream thing where there are Dark Force connecting to him in some way, again, Yoda fought Palpatine or Sidious in that dream sequence, and it would look like it was real. I mean, that whole episode is weird, if I remember correctly. But could there be like a pre-fight that happens in that way between Anakin and Obi-Wan, and then we get the real fight a little bit later? Is it just going to be one fight? And then I guess the follow-up question to that, and Jonesy, I'll go to you first on this one, but do you want that fight to be, is it a 2-minute fight? Is it a 20-minute fight? Is it as long as we saw in like Revenge of the Sith? Or where do you think the sweet spot is for something like that?
So I think only one fight.
Okay.
I think it's all I want. I'd rather see again, it's only 5 episodes, so let's get the build up right. Let's get the tension to where that climax actually means something. Because otherwise it just seems like they're just throwing, choreography at us. Now, as far as how long should the battle be, what I would love to see is something closer along the lines of Empire Strikes Back, where it's it's like almost this mental chess match, more so than just a battle of abilities like it was with Revenge of the Sith. To where it's more of this just psychological warfare.
Mm-hmm.
And now who would have that advantage? I would like to see Vader, attempting to be that kind of guy at this point. But again, he's not able to get past all of the emotion, everything else, the hatred he has for Obi-Wan. So he's a bit more reckless. But I would love to see Obi-Wan do something, that we haven't seen before. And I think that's the part that I'm most curious about is like, okay, what is it going to be? And I know one of the first quotes you have is, I was but the learner, right? And now I'm the master. Because there's got to be some sort of tie right in there about something that Vader did that still just showed that he was not as mature as Obi-Wan. And whether it was just Obi-Wan being clever or crafty or whatever it might be, I think whatever that moment is, it's got to be really, it's got to be noticeable, I think, in order for that to finally, because it worked okay with Revenge of the Sith, right? The quote works with Revenge of the Sith. And I'm sorry to jump to the next thing, but
no,
I
it's
think
fine. We can go in there. Yeah.
I think they're relevant to tie together. But it works fine enough with Revenge of the Sith, right? His arrogance got the better of him. He tried to leap over him.
He had the high ground. Yep.
Yeah, and he clearly didn't get that across in Jedi School 101. So, what is it now that makes it seem less egregious or maybe more egregious than what we encountered in Pac-Man Episode 3? And, but so I think it's got to be But as far as length, I would love to see like a 10-minute battle. I think 10 minutes would be a good sweet spot of, again, being able to have this more. You remember the episode with the Mandalorian when they're on the prison ship and you kind of
Yeah.
had that suspense and that build up? Like, I would love for that. And that's what A New Hope did a really good job of too. Like this kind of behind the scenes, sensing each other and moving, the pieces kind of moving in place. How are they actually going to bump into one another?
Mm-hmm.
I like that type of build up. And I think that would be really important for them to build that suspense before we actually get to the actual resolution of the conflict.
So Dante, same question for you, but maybe if you could just work in, your thoughts on, how much of the original quote, this whole, the circle is now complete. When I last saw you, I was but the learner, but now I am the master. Are you like? I think like Jonesy pointed out, it's always been that scene in Clone Wars, or I'm sorry, in Revenge of the Sith for us, right, where he's got the high ground. He says, "Don't try it." Right, that line of like, "Hey, you young kid that's inexperienced, don't do this. You have no idea what you're about to learn. I'm the master, you're the learner," kind of thing. But are you okay with them taking something like this and saying, "Okay, yeah, but it can also mean this"? I don't think it's going to be it. No, it really means this. I think it can mean this as well, kind of thing. But if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think that works. Like my first thought when we were talking about this question is that like maybe as the battle's going on, it kind of goes along and Vader just gets more angry and angry, and at the end he's just kind of just all rage. And
Mm,
then when he's doing that, like Obi-Wan's kind of saying, "This is why you failed, and this is why you whatever." And so that's why, in that sense, he was the learner then. But then when they come back next time, he's controlled that rage in A New Hope, so he's not that rageful person anymore. So that kind of it creates somewhat of that dynamic, which I think could work for my sensibilities at least.
mm-hmm.
In terms of like how many fights they've had, like or they could have, I one thought I had was maybe like the first opportunity of a fight, like Obi-Wan says no to it. Like he's like, "I can't do this. It wrecked me the first time. Like I can't go through with this. This isn't for me to fight." He's like, "No, I gotta go." And so for whatever reason, he exits the scenario, and so he doesn't join that fight.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, they are going to fight. So at least one, which I think will last a while.
Yeah. So here's a follow up question to that then, because I was thinking about, would you be okay? Would you want that one fight to be solely on them, sort of like we got in Revenge of the Sith? I mean, for the most part, that was really just, I don't remember how long it was. It felt like it was 30 minutes long, and I know it was not, but it was a longer fight. Certainly the longest fight we've had in Star Wars. But would you want them to be cutting away to anything? Or do you feel like we need to stay with them and we need to see this fight? Because when we get to the next fight, which is in A New Hope, hopefully that's the only next fight they have, it is cutting away, and we're kind of floating between these two different storylines that are happening simultaneously. And so it does kind of pull away from it. And we understand now why they did that. I mean, from a budget perspective, it was probably better that they would pull away. They've got Alec Guinness, who wasn't, he wasn't twirling around as quickly as he probably could. And now people have gone back and re-edited that to make it much more dynamic, and there's a lot of vigor and energy going on there. But with this one, you've got two people that are arguably still in their prime. They could give us a reprise of the fight in Revenge of the Sith with a new twist on it. But do you think we're going to have any kind of something else going on, or do you think it's just going to be focused solely on them? Is that what you'd like to see in that 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever it is we get?
My thought is it's called Kenobi, so it's going to be very like it's about Kenobi. So when you have the scenes that like jump between different fights, all the different fights have to be very important. But in a show called Kenobi, like really you care about the Kenobi fight.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's going to be long, then the other fights would have to be really long too. So, I mean, my thought is that it'll probably just be them. Kind of stick with that emotion of that scene, milk as much out as you can, and not worry about jumping to strafe runs or something
Yeah.
like that.
I could definitely see it though, that he's doing it for a reason to enable someone to escape, or for something else to be happening, right? Because there has to be a reason why they're in conflict in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could very well just be that that's already happened, and this is what is left to take to resolve it. Because I think one of the other quotes that comes to mind is when Tarkin and Vader are talking, right? He hasn't felt him in a long time either, and Tarkin's like, well, surely he's dead by now. And so if we're cutting that timeline in half from where we thought that was being referenced to 20 years plus to now half that, then there's also got to be something in here where while Obi-Wan, wins, there's got to be something that says Obi-Wan is maybe seems like he disappears, or something to that effect, or there's a reason why he would go back into hiding, and that Vader wouldn't just stalk him for the rest of his life. Because if I have a feeling if Vader knew he was alive, there wouldn't be a waking moment that wasn't spent searching for him, to the point of defying Palpatine in some way as well.
Hold that thought, because I did add, and you guys don't have this in your show notes, but I did add in something as we were talking, and it literally says stepping on the robes after his death. And how does Obi-Wan get away? What does that look like? So and you're touching on something because I think that is important. I want to kind of end on that. But let's go back to I sent something which is the next quote. So again, what I'm trying to do here, this quotes as clues. There are things that were in episode 4. I think I've got one in here from from Return of the Jedi, but there's certain quotes that have been in the original trilogy that kind of lead us to clues of what a relationship possibly could have looked like, or that they had a relationship in between. And so I want to talk about at least how we originally perceived that line of text, that quote, and then possibly what another explanation for that could be. So I sense a presence I've not felt since. Like for me, that has always been, well, I haven't felt his presence since I fought him on Mustafar, right? That's kind of, that was all we knew. That was the last time they actually fought. This feels like it would be, though, another instance. It could be this very instance here. But I think the question, and maybe Jonesy for you first, is: do you think that question was because Obi-Wan was just near, or do you think it was because he remembers exactly the presence was only as they were fighting, right? Because could Kenobi at some point be like on a spaceship somewhere else, or on another planet, and they're separated by miles, as opposed to, oh no, the last time I felt this presence was when I was locking lightsabers with him?
I think I'll probably take this one more literally, that it is when they last came into actual contact or conflict with one another. I think that would make it'd probably have a more grounded and real response for Vader to actually pause and take note, and to say that. And while I was saying before, like, it's, we only have half the time, 10 years is still a long time to not see someone and think, and maybe not forget about it, but also to, forget what that feeling starts to, what that feeling feels like, where it's a bit of a surprise when he does sense it, and to that, with that kind of response. But, yeah, I'm curious on your take on this one, actually, Albert, because you haven't really shared all of yours with us on this one.
On the sense something?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one seems it feels a little on the surface. I to be fair, like I don't think there's a deeper meaning. Like some of these other ones, I'm like, oh, it could really get kind of weird on the theories and what they could mean. But this one does feel kind of straightforward. I feel like it is simply Obi-Wan's been hiding. I think about, like, did he suppress, much like Luke Skywalker did he suppress his ability to be found? And he's talking about, could he have felt Obi-Wan even before, like, during the Clone Wars and all that? He probably felt him, light years away. He could always feel his presence in some sort, because they have that master and apprentice bond. And when Revenge of the Sith happens, he shuts that off, and it's like he goes dark. And so anytime that light is turned on, then I think that it obviously gets him, his spidey senses up. But I also think when he first gets on to the Death Star, I always thought he intentionally turned that on. Like he wanted Vader to find him. That was all part of the strategy as well. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but those are kind of some of my thoughts. I'm going to go to
and kind of something I was going to pose to Dante along those lines is, do you think it's possible that Obi-Wan would send out kind of a fake death type of impression through the Force? Because and this is exactly what Albert was saying. Like, it seems like there's a connection to where everyone's like, if something would have happened, I would have sensed it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're getting this in High Republic all the time. We definitely had this with Leia talking about Luke. And we've seen in other instances too, where you feel it when an event like this happens. is it possible that Obi-Wan had a way to, fake that death, where Vader, maybe this is kind of the way that Vader stopped looking for him, is this impression he felt in the Force, and that was something that Obi-Wan could do to get Vader off of his scent.
Yeah, there's got to be some reason why if they fight, he's gonna be like, okay, I'm done fighting you now. I'm not going to chase you. There's got to be something. So that makes perfect sense. I think it could work. There's probably other stuff they could do too. I can't think of anything offhand. I mean, so let's go with that one. I approve this message. So yeah, I don't really have much to add other than that. That works. Something's got to happen. I'm not sure what it is, but yeah, that works.
I've got. I'm going to give you the next question, Dante, and this one goes back to Return of the Jedi, where he says Obi-Wan once thought as you did. Then he goes on to say, "I must obey my master," and this is just to kind of refresh everybody's memories. This is when Luke is trying to tell him just leave, like, I sense a conflict in you. Just let go. Come with me. Come back to the light side. We can. Is basically inverse of the speech that was given to him by his father on Bespin, right? In Empire Strikes Back. But do you think we're actually going to get some kind of? Are they going to elaborate more on this? Do you think we're going to see Obi-Wan try to connect with Anakin and try to get Anakin to come back over to the light side, even if he is this master of evil, right? Because he calls him master of evil, Darth, in Part 4, which I didn't have in here. I don't think I did, but at some point he's kind of figured. He's already told him, or he's already convinced himself that this Anakin is no longer here. He's gone. He doesn't even refer to him as Anakin. He calls him Master of Evil. But do you think he's going to try to reconnect with him? And what are you looking forward to if that does happen?
Yeah, I think of all the lines that you've listed, this is probably the most that they have room to work with. Like everything else seems pretty straightforward of what they could have meant in Revenge of the Sith, like direct link. This is the one where, like, okay, it's not complete. Like you can look back at Revenge of the Sith. Okay, there's maybe a little bit missing, and saying that Obi-Wan once thought as you did. So I think that they have the most room to work with, which I think they'll do. Like they'll probably lean really heavy into this line during their fight or during whatever interactions they might have, which is one of the things I'm probably looking forward to the most, that really emotional interaction between them.
I agree. I think this is the one line that will have the most weight to it. And I think it also ties in directly when Obi-Wan's talking with Luke of, he's more machine now than man, twisted and evil. And I think these two lines can go hand in hand with this, broader scene that Obi-Wan is trying to reach out. He does sense conflict. He is trying to convince him that, I know what you've done, but there's a path out of this. But Vader just continues to do other things that are just more and more heinous than the one before it. So does Vader, just slaughter other people, like kind of like Rogue One style, right? And that type of thing where it's just incessant. It's just thoughtless killing, of civilians or whatever it might be at his command. And so I think those two lines could really fit together. And I think this is where the crux of I think if they get this right, if they have this interaction, really like draw on the inspiration from those two lines about what could that actually have meant, I think it'll all be worth it, right? In that moment, and hopefully everything that built up to it. But I think that's, if I'm with Dante on this one, if you really focus on that emotional connection right there and what that means for both characters and the different places that they're at, that will probably be the most interesting scene that you can dissect for years in different ways. And each time you see it, you pull something different from it, which I think is the really exciting from that angle, because you have a couple of lines that can reference into that type of more of that mental, again, it kind of goes back to that psychological warfare type of thing. And I think that would be a lot of fun to dig into if they get that right.
Yeah, I'm with you guys about 100% on both on everything you said. There's a psychological aspect that I hope they tap into as part of this series. When we're talking about Kenobi, I do hope we get into the mind and the psyche of Kenobi, and I hope we see him, right or wrong. I hope we actually see him showing signs of regret, remorse, right? Replaying that scene over and over again in his mind, and even if we're not shown that, just alluding to the fact that he can't get this out of his mind. Like he's gone through that scenario a million times and has thought of other ways that he could have handled that. things he could have done differently, right? And that's that emotional weight, that stress, the anxiety of all this, and then confronting him again, going into that fight and saying, and go at least going in initially as, this is an opportunity for me to do something right, right? Like, I screwed that up. That's not his fault. It was my fault. As much as it was really Anakin's fault, seeing that kind of emotional stress that he's been dealing with, right? And kind of that baggage that he's been dealing with for so long. And then going into this thinking, I can make this right. I've again, replayed the scenario a million times. I can reconnect him. I can save him. It's a chance for him to do over. It's a redemption for him in some ways. And him, that kind of tying into this whole storyline, or this whole quote of, Anakin or Vader, Kenobi once thought as you did. Because that's really what it comes down to when you think about it. You've got somebody who's related to him by blood, but somebody who loves and cares for Anakin deeply, even though they don't have a relationship. He does, just from that father and son relationship, pleading to him, saying, please come back. And you got the same thing happening here now with a father pleading essentially to his son, saying, please come back, So I think there's a good one. I think this is going to be like the really emotional piece of it all. And I think of course, Vader is probably going to go all, rage, like Dante just said, and we're going to get a great battle. And that's just going to be kind of the end of it. And Vader's going to think that, oh, he's done. He's gone. I have no reason to believe that he's still alive. And now I can just go on about my business and go back to what the Emperor wants me to do. I think all that's still going to happen. But prior to that, I think this is where we're going to peak in terms of like Star Wars emotion with these two characters for sure.
And I kind of have a feeling that, and maybe we'll get an idea when we get the Kenobi comic at the beginning of May, that we might be introduced back to Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan is completely broken, even still. And the reason why I even go this route is because we saw this with Yoda in the Age of Rebellion
comics.
Yeah, the annual Major Republic. I can't remember which one it was, but it was the annual, right, where he's stranded on Dagobah right before Luke shows up, and he's pretty well broken. And I mean, and for this, I mean, and very much to your point, Obi-Wan did view him like a brother. All the things that goes with a sibling, right? As much as you love and you hate him at the same time, usually, but it was still just something that he never thought that they would ever be not in each other's lives, or not. They were basically inseparable. And as much as they gave each other a hard time, they loved that about their relationship, and they loved each other in those kinds of ways. And so it wouldn't surprise me if we saw a very broken Kenobi, and whatever this adventure is that spurs him is what pulls him out of that to give him that hope. Or and the other side of that is that maybe this is what sends him really deep into that hermit cycle. And this is why he doesn't really surface a whole lot after the fact, and Owen's already chased him off, and he just really does. This is kind of what finally breaks Obi-Wan's back, if you will, that he failed in this regard, and that there was really felt like it was just absolutely hopeless. And that's where we get kind of that bitterness that we get in A New Hope that comes out when he's talking to Luke, when Obi-Wan's talking to Luke. Maybe that's what it feels like to me. It feels like bitterness almost, right?
Yeah. Maybe there's a scene in there in a comic coming up where before he brings Luke back to his pad, he's like cleaning up all the beer bottles and the cigarette butts that are laying everywhere because he's just been living this kind of a bum life.
It was a new Alderaan instead of new Asgard.
Exactly. Yeah, just kind of chilling there, wasting his life away. No, seriously, what about you, Dante? I think you've already talked about this. I'm sorry. I didn't go back to you. So. Okay, well, let's do this. I got a fun one here. It's not in your show notes. But maybe it's on that same line. And before we get into that final kind of discussion about stepping on the robes, that old wizard, right? We hear that from Owen Lars about that old wizard. And now, as much as wizards being used in the in the High Republic, I'm starting to think, well, maybe he was a compliment, right? That old cool guy. But no, he says the old wizard. Do you think we're going to see the old wizard at play? Like, I envision, like, if they do, Obi-Wan's come into town because he's got to go get stuff. I mean, he doesn't live just in that hut only, right? So there's got to be times when he interacts with people. Maybe he goes incognito, or he's just got his Jedi robes on or something. I would say he's not going to have Jedi robes because it's such a, we know what people look like, and we know Jedi at that point too. At that time, but either way, he goes into town, and is he doing like parlor tricks with the Force, and kids are like really mystified, and or is that something that he does and does one too many, and that's what gets the people's attention of some sort? Or do you think it's just he's a Force user, and so they were considered wizards, and that's just going to be the end of it? That's for you, Dante.
I sure hope he doesn't go to the town and do parlor tricks. That would just seem totally like out of character. Like I gotta hide and protect Luke. Also, watch this.
But what if he does them like on the side? Like what if he does it without anybody knowing? Kind of like with Qui-Gon and the dice, or he's manipulating people in town, and he's got a reputation as being a wizard, even though no one really understands how or why. Still too much? Blow his cover kind of thing?
I mean, with Owen calling him a wizard, he'd have to be aware of all that going on. My thought is just that Owen can't say Jedi. You don't say Jedi. So, and Owen knows he was a Jedi because, he brought Luke.
Right.
So he's like, oh, that wizard. Just a different way to say Jedi.
Well, and he knows Anakin too. Anakin was over at his place, and he sure as heck was a Jedi.
Right. But maybe this is where Owen and I guess Ben at this point had a better relationship at some point. And Owen saw Obi-Wan use the Force for mind tricks or for influencing other people. And even just on, kind of small things on the side that people weren't necessarily aware of, to your point, Albert, but also things that would manipulate things that Owen might be a bit wary about. Because we've seen that with some characters throughout Star Wars where they see something that seems a bit ethically questionable or morally questionable. And then they're like, well, have you done that to me? I mean, how many times have we heard that in a movie where someone has the ability to influence minds or wipe their mind? Like, it reminds me of like Men in Black, right? When you've never done that to me, have you? No, I never did that to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the memory wipe thing, but so I'm kind of wondering if maybe, and that would be kind of cool to see. I'd like to see Obi-Wan and Owen having something of a friendship, because there's really he dropped the baby off and gave them what they always wanted, right? So at some point, you can't figure there was really any animosity until something happened or until that trust started to break down. But again, that kind of leads you back to something has happened on Tatooine that put Luke at risk or put the Lars family at risk in general. And again, that starts to draw things back to Tatooine when now it's starting to kind of seem like we won't really spend a ton of time on Tatooine potentially once the adventure kind of gets going.
Yeah. Well, and he calls him a wizard, so to some extent, like I said, he's got to either he doesn't, like you said. I think that's a good reason. It's just like he doesn't call him a Jedi for whatever, we don't use that word around here because that's just going to evoke his father, and he doesn't want to get near talking about who his father was or what his father was like. But if he does have a reputation of being a wizard, I think the cat's out of the bag. I think people, if they take it, if we take that literally, he has been doing things, or at least when he's around, weird things happen, right? Maybe they never see it. They can't explain it, but he's got some sort of reputation as a wizard because there's something special about him or weird about him. And that's why he's kooky and hangs out, out in the, where was it? The Jungan Sea or wherever the hell he was living at.
Junlan Waste.
Junlan Waste. Thank you.
Hey, you're starting to make it sound like Smallville now. Or Clark, every time you're around, stuff always happens.
Yeah, or every time you're not here,
right? And every time you're not here, the blur is here, or whatever they used to call it.
Yep.
Yeah, that definitely works. Especially like because Owen knows he's a Jedi, he could see him do stuff like, okay, I know he's doing something. No one else kind of gets that he's doing something because I know he's a Jedi. And they're in the comfort of their own home, saying he's kind of under his breath out that wizard.
That's true. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I like that he was trying to prove a point. So by calling him something other than a Jedi, one, he may not want to utter the word. He might have that kind of negative reaction to it, but also to dissuade Luke from having any delusions of grandeur and, anything alluding to Obi-Wan being a Jedi might give Luke some ideas that, pursuing and leaving the farm and really leaving Owen's, control, I guess, really is really what it ended up being, right?
Yeah, because he wants them there he's cheap labor is what he is.
Yeah.
Well,
it's the same reason you have kids. You want them to cut the grass, right? I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what you want.
It's the only reason why they accepted the kid in the first place, right? You're like,
Yeah.
I'm going to put them to work,
Exactly.
and I can save my money on some droids.
That's right. Yep. It's exactly right.
I think Owen meant well for Luke, and he really did. He was trying to protect him in the way that he thought was best. And again, maybe we'll see why that was, what Obi-Wan did that maybe put Luke at risk or the family at risk.
Yeah, and I was just thinking too, like, I don't, we have no reason to believe Luke would even know what a Jedi is. I don't think he wants to open that can of worms because now he's got to explain it. Because we get that whole story from Kenobi, right, where he's going into, years ago, for 1,000 years, a Jedi, and then he has to explain what the Force is, and which is kind of bizarre if you think about it. That Luke has gotten that old. He's that old and has no concept of the Force, but I guess he is living on the hellhole of Tatooine with
he has no Jedi.
Right, but again, there's a difference. I think Luke probably knows what a Jedi is, or at least the stories of the Jedi, right? Kind of like the legacy of Luke Skywalker when we get to the sequel. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they understand what the Force is, because normal people, even during the Clone Wars, see Jedi doing stuff all the time, but they don't know what they don't know what the Force is either. They just know Jedis have abilities and things like that. But again, at this point, 20 years after the prime of the Jedi in this era, it's also a time where people have forgotten. The Empire has made sure that as much could be forgotten, at least all the positive things at least could be forgotten and burned away in various ways, to where it's just the mystique of a Jedi, and that's about all there is left of their legacy. There's no real hope in the galaxy as far as that comes from the Jedi Order in any kind of way.
Well, and there's the line of, you fought with my father in the Clone Wars. So yeah, there is that too, right? So he does have some kind of idea of maybe who the Jedi were, to your point, but maybe not how the intricacies of the Force or the nuances of what it means to be a Jedi, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay. Let's wrap it up on this last thing here. And we've kind of already talked a little bit about it. But Dante, for you, if you go back and imagine this is the very first time you've ever seen A New Hope, and Vader goes through, he swings, and suddenly the robes fall down. And the very first thing he does is he goes around, he steps on the robes. Now, the first time you see that movie, you think, okay, no big deal, right? He's maybe just making sure that there's nothing there, or he doesn't. I always read it as, he doesn't understand what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like something, he was where, he's no longer there, and now he's stepping on the ropes. He's like, what happened here? Like, how did he disappear, kind of thing?
Make sure it wasn't a secret trapdoor.
Yeah, exactly. Secret trapdoor.
I heard he's a wizard.
Right. He's a magician. But I think now that scene has taken on obviously some very different meanings, especially since we know about Force ghosts and all that. But if we go back to that scene now, I guess, given what knowing what why do you think that Vader is tapping on that robes? Is it still somewhat of the same thing, or are we in this, to kind of go back to what we were talking about earlier about how does Obi-Wan get away? Is that something that Obi-Wan does? Does he use a parlor trick? Does he kind of go through a trap door at some point and he's like, oh, wait, I'm not getting fooled again. I'm going to tap on this thing to make sure he's not there. And I know that's kind of a stretch, to be honest, but I just wonder how much they're going to play up that scene, if they do. And what are your thoughts around that?
One thought was that, like, just a mental image of the cloak falling and the naked Obi-Wan running away.
Right. Maybe he did the Force sprint naked. Is the way he was. Yeah.
But I'm probably more interested to hear what you guys have to say, just because for me, I don't see why it would have any different meaning than it always had. Anakin didn't know Force ghosts, so Obi-Wan just disappears, whether he hit him or not. He's not there anymore. So like, okay, what the crap's going on? Step on the cloak. Okay, still nothing there. He's not Ant-Man or anything like that. But so I don't see any real difference.
Yeah, I think part of it, maybe he was going to see if there was anything that came off on his shoes. Maybe he turned to goop or something like that. So he just wanted to make sure that there was, like, I'm with you, Robert. I think he was confused and he didn't understand what was actually meant. To, like what Dante was saying, he doesn't seem to have a concept of what Force ghosts and Force spirits are. And I'm trying to think if he's actually been in contact with one, because even in the Clone Wars, I think when we had, it was Obi-Wan who came across Qui-Gon in the caves, right? With Ahsoka.
Are you talking about Mortis?
Yeah, there was Mortis stuff, maybe, but
Maybe there was another time too, though, where they were. I can't remember what it was, where we actually had Qui-Gon
It was with
show up.
Yoda a bit, I think, in the last episode.
Yeah, he comes. Yeah, the last series, or well, not in season 6.
Yeah. That series.
But yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of confusion there, though. I think with the Anakin's training was very, very incomplete, and his field of vision was very narrow in a lot of ways, and he didn't exactly strike me as a bookworm, and he was looking for the easy way out a lot of times. So I don't know that, and this is something the Jedi didn't really seem to talk about. Even Yoda seemed to be taken aback that this stuff was even possible, right? And Qui-Gon was the one who had to introduce the idea of how to transcend your physical form and still retain your presence in the cosmic force. But I like the psychological aspect of it, though, too, because the other thing I was thinking of is that, I don't know that we've ever, except for when Obi-Wan is talking to Luke, I don't think he's ever called Anakin Vader at all, right? He calls him Darth when they fight, but I don't think he's ever called him Vader. So it would be kind of one of those interesting moments or an interesting things where he just refuses to call him Vader, just to prove a point. But he won't necessarily call him Anakin either, or maybe calling him Anakin pisses him off because he's already adopted this whole mentality of as Darth Vader rather
than moniker,
Anakin,
the persona.
Anakin dead, yeah.
I like that idea of him always calling him Anakin, like throughout the whole fight or whatever, just like Anakin. That just keeps on.
Right. And then the next time they see him, he just calls him Darth.
Darth,
yeah. He doesn't even recognize.
I'm not even acknowledge your name. It's just Darth.
Yeah, I'm not going to call you by your given name.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
I said good day.
Okay. Well, yeah, and it just for what it's worth, I think the same thing. Okay. No, I'm kidding. It's one of those things that's always interesting, like in, we know he didn't know, but it's just funny. That whole scene is very funny. And I've always, even as a kid, I wondered, like, how come that thing wasn't smoldering, right? Or did it fall down and he was a terrible swing and he swung over it? You know what I mean? Like, it already collapsed when he finally came through a swing, and so he didn't burn it. And again,
well, I mean, he didn't play T-ball, so it could be anything at this point.
Exactly. Yeah.
I believe the canon answer is that becoming a Force ghost like that can be a choice. So he gave up his physical body, and so the cloak fell, which means he didn't hit anything because.
I get that. Here, okay. What I'm saying is, if I'm swinging at somebody and I got a lightsaber, he's standing right there, right? I mean, I would think as a Jedi Master, that thing would be coming so fast that I would cut through the robe as it was falling, But the way it looks is that robe hits the ground and it's not smoldering. It wasn't cut in half. So either that thing fell super fast or he's a horrible swing. Like Jonesy said, he didn't tee up right. Like he was just,
Well, again, he
shanked it.
If he would have done his homework, he would have learned how Elzar Mann liked to take care of business.
Yeah, exactly. You don't cut horizontally. You cut vertically. Dante has
diagonally, right?
He hasn't. Wait, he's still on Rising Storm, so don't spoil too much.
I'm way behind. It's okay.
Sorry. Yeah, you didn't hear anything.
It's my fault for being behind, so it's on me.
That's right.
But that is a funny joke for anybody that's read. Well, I wouldn't even say it because I don't want to spoil it.
I'm excited to get that joke.
It was in the children's book. That's
exactly. A Day at the Fair, I think is whatever that
right.
title was. Okay. Okay. Last question I've got is: do you guys have any final thoughts on how Obi-Wan gets away? Do you think he fakes a death kind of thing, and that's what throws off his sense, his lead? Vader's sense and lead at that point, and kind of throws in the towel and says, "Okay, there's nothing else here for me to do. I've did what I needed to do," and that's when we get the surprise in episode 4. Anybody want to take a stab?
Sure. I mean, I like the idea of him faking his own death. I mean, there is the one line from Tarkin, like saying he must be dead by now, which kind of infers that maybe he survived longer. But at the same time, Tarkin might not know their interaction because we don't know that Tarkin knows Vader's Anakin. He might, but might not.
Here, I'm going to ask you a question on that. Do you think Tarkin knows? Like, do you think? Because like you said, Jonesy. I mean, it feels like Tarkin feels like you're way too obsessed about this, right? And later on, the Emperor says the same thing. They all know it. It's interfering with them. It's getting in the way of what they really want. But do you think if he does have this encounter, well, he is going to, after he has this encounter, does he go back to Tarkin? Does he go back to Palpatine and say, yeah, I found Kenobi and we got into it again? Or do you think he keeps that under his hood because, he doesn't want to get in trouble?
I would suspect that Palpatine knows about it. He can feel it. Tarkin, I don't see why he would tell him that they had an interaction.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think Palpatine probably knows, but they don't necessarily talk about it. Or he might allow Vader this secret, what he thinks is a secret.
Right.
And the way I would like to see this scene, though, end is actually something akin to what we saw in Force Awakens with, the ground splitting and separating them. But it was after like a royal ass kicking that, that Vader takes yet again. But they're both maybe wounded enough where it happens in a certain way that Obi-Wan's fate is very masked from what Vader can actually tell what happened. It might look like Obi-Wan actually falls and dies or something to that effect, right?
Sort of like Ahsoka at the end of season 2, where she fights Vader and suddenly that whole thing's come down and you're like, okay, there's no way they lived, but they did.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Something along those lines where it's just clearly Obi-Wan's won the fight, but then something goes wrong. And it would be great. I mean, and I like the visual that we got in Force Awakens with, the ground and we know there's the planet, but there was also speculation the Force had something to do with it too. And just the power that was kind of building around them. I would love to have something like that where Vader's anger starts to really manifest itself in a certain way. Kind of like we saw at the end of Revenge of the Sith, where he's just exploding everything around him and just starts to annihilate a room. It would be great to see kind of that power, that frustration of things in some way to where it makes it confusing whether or not Obi-Wan actually lives or not. And that's why Vader doesn't necessarily continue his hunt after the fact.
Yeah. I like that rather than he just disappears kind of thing. I'm of the same opinion where he's going to, there's going to be a precarious situation that, had it been anybody else or even through Vader's eyes at that point, there's no way he would have survived and he's surely dead. Radiation leak of some sort, maybe some poisonous gas, or he falls down a chasm and, we see the other end of it, even though, he may not, but, or maybe he does go back to Tarkin and say, yeah, I did this, that, or he was poisoned and he fell into this thing with radiation and there's, he'll die a slow death or something, and that's kind of why he makes that comment about surely he's dead by now kind of thing. Or maybe they're just talking about old age, which he really wasn't that old, I guess, at that point, but Alec Guinness sure was. Hey, Jonesy, I'm sorry, Dante, I cut you off there when I asked that question about the whether he would tell Tarkin. Were you, I didn't mean to do that.
I didn't notice I was cut off, so you're fine.
Okay, well, good.
I must have been done.
I've done my job. All right. Well, nonetheless, I mean, this was a fun episode. It was fun to kind of talk about Kenobi. We're going to come back and do a more formal episode similar to this when we get into like the final hype. And so we will touch on some of these questions. I think our perspective will be different because I think by the time we get around to doing that, we'll at least have a trailer, hopefully. If not, we'll have lots of teasers or promos or something to work off of a little bit more. So I think these questions will take some different answers here as we get a little bit further in or closer to the release date of May 25th.
Well, yeah, and I really hope we do get some little breadcrumbs in the comic book as well. That would be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
My expectations are a bit low on that front, but I think it would still be fun to see where he's at as he recounts these adventures that he had in the past.
But you're not off base because I mean there are certain things like there's the things that happen in the comic around the time that other stuff is happening in Star Wars. It's not like directly tied to it, but you can see where they're like playing off of that,
Right, and this is somewhat of a memoirs type of thing where he's recounting stories. So it kind of reminds me of like young Indiana Jones, where he's in the now. He's in this. You can kind of see him where he is now, but he's recounting these stories from the past that were influential in his life.
Right.
And so it would be interesting if there was something within all of that. But you're right. I mean, they can jump around quite a bit, and the context of it all can be manipulated any kind of way that you really want to tell the story. And again, I don't necessarily want a lot of overt stuff. But I think little bit of tidbits that you can at least draw connections, even though if they're not really tangible by the time you watch the TV show, would be just fun to be able to make some connections there and see if there's, really kind of put this whole, how connected is everything to the test, right? Because we still have this disconnection, I think, between books and live action, animation and live action.
Right.
It's getting closer, and in some cases it's been really close, but I think things like this have still been a bit off, or a bit far off. So I'm wondering if this takes another big step in that direction.
All right. And Dante, for you, final thoughts before we get out of here?
This is going to be great. I'm excited for Kenobi. It's probably one of the series that kind of has the most weight to it, like expectation going into it. Even though, like, at least right now, I'm kind of calm, probably because of the baby. It's taking up my thoughts and I'm too tired to really worry about Kenobi, but I am excited for it. So yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah, me too. Just the fact that we're getting Hayden Christensen back, we've got Ewan McGregor coming back, Jimmy Smits, potentially other characters. I mean, again, you look at the rumor list and it feels like everybody's coming back for 5 episodes, but the reality is, Mark Hamill's in this somewhere, as Luke, older Luke. But yeah, no, he's possible. There's just a lot going into this, and these are 2 characters that were beloved from the Clone Wars series, and it's certainly, we've gotten 9 movies that were kind of focused around Anakin Skywalker. So, well, maybe 6, but the Skywalkers in general. How about that? 9 movies around the Skywalkers. So I'm looking forward to it as well. And we've got again, we'll come back and do a couple more shows as we get closer to the premiere on May 25th. Some of those will be done. I'm trying to think. We'll be out of Celebration at that point, correct?
Yeah, we'll be in California when the first one drops. So we'll get those out before we go to Celebration. But first impressions will be while we're out there. So it'd be curious if they do like a watch party, because I believe they've done watch parties at previous conventions in different ways. They may have had one in Chicago too, but we weren't super interested in it. But I think I remember the guys saying they did one in Orlando or something like that, or maybe Anaheim one year.
Yeah.
And so that would be really cool to watch Kenobi in a giant room like we were when we were watching the Mandalorian kind of single. Yeah, single reel. That would be something. That'd be an experience.
Yep.
Yeah, Ewan McGregor will be there. Why not?
Yeah. It's like watching the trailer with Ian McDiarmid coming out.
Yeah.
I can imagine Hayden and Ewan McGregor coming out and then
watching
introducing it or coming out after it premieres. Yeah, people would flip their wigs.
All right, we'll leave it there. Jonesy, thanks for finally joining us, and I'd like to thank all of our audience members, Steph and Steph only. Thanks for for being here.
I was about to say, I didn't think we were.
As she watches TikTok in the background.
Oh my goodness! Tell her to get off that. It's rotting her mind. It's rotting her brain.
Yeah, so many
Dante,
people can dance.
Dante, thanks as always for coming on here and
it's always fun
being a host with us. You guys can find us on Discord, and I want to do more of these. Like I called it a Patreon party. I think we're still going to do. I mean, this isn't really the same. I guess it is. This was meant to be more than one person, but I kind of threw this at the last minute, like I said. So I'd like to get a kind of a panel of people for these Patreon parties, and maybe I'll come up with a better
round table.
Yeah, get a better name for it too. Like I'm not really. This sounds like a TikTok video.
EGM round table.
The patronizers.
The patronizers. There you go. That's what we'll call it. That's perfect. But yeah, I'd like to. So if you're within the sound of my voice, if you're a Patreon member listening to the show, and you want to come on and just talk Star Wars with us, I'd like to do this more often. So just you need to come into Discord, if you don't mind, or just you can hit us up in Discord or send us an email. Tell me you're interested if you don't want to do that, and we can pull you in that way. But it's meant to be your show and not as much as ours.
And where do you go to find us on Discord, Albert?
I hate that you keep challenging me on this stuff now. Cantina Cast. No. eargluemedia.com/Discord.
There you go.
I did it. Yes. Dad, are you proud? Did you see that one, Dad? Did you see it? Okay.
Yeah, but next time don't hesitate.
Oh, okay. No.
Do not hesitate.
Okay. And with that, we'll see you guys on the next show.
You're still listening? Wow, That's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.